Hey everybody, this is Kevin Couchman with the podcast Get This. It's the show about things people love, and I'm coming to you from the St. Paul studio in the building across from the homeless encampment that's being dismantled as we speak on Monday, December 21st in the foul year of our Lord 2020. And I'm joined by Harley, who is a podcaster, a personality, an internet personality in her own right. Harley, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm just back from a couple weeks in Austin, and here in the St. Paul winter, we were trying to avoid lockdown, but they just re-upped lockdown in a different way. I'm sure we'll get into it, but so this is the show about things people love. What is it you love? What is it you want to talk about? We'll go for about an hour. I just kind of want to get to know you a little more. I was on your show. Maybe we can start talking about that. So tell people about your show.
Yeah. So for those listening, he was on the podcast that I have with my co-host who goes by Nev, and it's called Red Letter, Yellow Letter. Basically, we just kind of discuss more anarchist, agorist, etc. views and morals, ethics, etc. We get different people on to sort of, tell us about what they feel regarding certain subjects, or sometimes we just kind of wing it, goof around. It's not all serious all the time, but it's a fairly new podcast. So that's kind of more of one of my many side projects, one of my way too many side projects that I do in general.
Yeah. And you're pretty active on Twitter too. You have an interesting handle. What's the Twitter handle?
Yeah, my Twitter handle is Rebel Scum Han, which is it's a play on, because I'm rebel scum, anarchist, blah, blah, blah. And it's a play on my birth name, actually. So, yeah,
all right.
It's puns and Star Wars references.
Right, but you also use this Cryptid Bartender handle, too, don't you?
Yeah, but that's for something really different. I actually kind of try to keep those a little bit separate, to be honest. A lot of people who follow my main Twitter, they know about the Cryptid Bartender stuff, and that's fine, but I try to kind of keep Cryptid Bartender separate from my main because it is a little more offensive to other people who don't understand where I'm coming from in regards to my ethical, moral, etc. beliefs. So, but
yeah, go on.
I was going to say the Cryptid Bartender, that is kind of my my main side project, I'd say. I said I have quite a few, but that is one of my main focuses for sure.
Right, and we have for people who are listening, right behind you, I see Sasquatch, and I want to believe. And where in the world are you coming from? I believe I know this, but for people listening.
Arizona.
Yeah. That's how's the weather?
Today it's actually fairly warm. We have, lows of 28 degrees, and then we have highs of, today is 77, I believe. So
that's nice. It's a little nicer.
It's a little annoying to be honest.
Oh, really? It's just lizard people.
You don't know how you're supposed to dress. You know, it's like, is it going to be cold? Is it going to be warm? You can't make up your mind. But yeah.
Well, so what is it you want to talk about today? I know you had some ideas, in the intake. What's top of mind for you?
To be honest, I'd rather focus on the Cryptid Bartender stuff a little more because I kind of get asked to discuss liberty-related stuff almost every single time I'm on someone else's podcast. That's all they ever want to ask me, and I end up answering the same questions every single time. It gets a little dry after a while.
Well, of course, yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about what you want to talk about. I can imagine that the liberty questions are something like, are we free? No. Why aren't we free? Well, the elites have abandoned us,
Not really, actually. Yeah. Not so much. They often more ask how I became, the way. Yeah, they ask about my backstory, which I've gone over so many times at this point. I've said it on the very first episode of Red Letter, Yellow Letter, and I've also answered it on a few other podcasts as well. And then they always tie in the shutdowns and COVID because I'm a bartender. We were one of the first people hit, so they always ask me about that. They always ask about what the lockdowns and the police force is like down here in Arizona. So
sure. Everybody's hungry for that information. I totally get it, but we don't have to go into that. So tell me what is the story behind Cryptid Bartender? You're a bartender. You're into cryptids, I assume. That's the
hopefully, right?
Yeah,
hopefully I'm not just grifting here. No, for sure. And a lot of people don't actually understand is funny enough how much my interest in the paranormal and cryptids, etc., actually ties into my current political beliefs and help kind of they all work together. And the current work with Cryptid Bartender kind of has particular goals in that same regard, which nobody ever asks me about, you know?
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about it right now just to get it out of the way.
consider yourself asked.
But yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, I've had a early on backstory towards distrusting authority, government, etc. I've had a lot of big wake up calls early on in my childhood and all. And that kind of worked hand in hand with an interest in UFOs and cryptids and the paranormal and all, because as much as like I did not believe all of it, you know, as a child, I wasn't really allowed to research those topics because I grew up in a very fundamentalist type church. Like,
sure.
Like, I mean, imagine like Jehovah's Witness type strict.
Right.
But
okay.
more, to be honest.
Right. Was it Seventh-day Adventist or what?
No, it was like its own separate thing, actually. It
okay.
was like
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's kind of difficult to explain, but
sure.
Very Old Testament based, lots of Jewish influence, actually, funny enough. So I was not allowed to.
Where was that? Was that in Arizona?
No, this was in California.
Oh, in California.
Yeah,
okay.
This was in California. And
boy, that's quite intense, because of course everybody has this idea that California is this, because of the way they brainwash us with the blue and red garbage. You have this idea that California is this white, you know, blue washed liberal place, and it's no. I mean, it's how many?
Oh no, it largely is.
Of course, but there are pockets of other things.
Well,
yeah,
I was a minority. I really was an absolute minority. Most people did not understand my beliefs at all, because it was a church with a name, but it was one they never heard of before. Right. And they didn't understand why I was in the cafeteria asking, what's in this meat product? You're literally labeling the lunch as mystery meat. I can't eat pork. I need to know what's in it. I was a constant target. People were like, what do you mean you can't eat pork? What do you mean you don't celebrate Christmas? So it always made me the weird kid.
I see. Yeah. Okay. I understand some of that. I grew up in North Dakota. We were Catholics, you know, and I recall some of our neighbor kid friends. We got into an argument because they said, "You're not Christians." And I thought they were just confused. And it was only later that I realized that they were in some weird hyper Protestant sect that really says, no, the Catholics are Satanists and blah, blah, blah. It took me a long time to, well, yeah, of course. I mean, there's a lot of that. I mean, there's no more anti-Catholic country in the world than the United States, except for maybe the UK historically. But we didn't even consider ourselves fringe. I mean, at least we had that institution as kind of a thing. People know what it is anyway. But yeah, I grew up around some people who were in some pretty serious, you know, I still even have very close friends who are somewhat estranged from family as a consequence of belonging to these kind of weird sects. Is that the case with you? Or you, I don't mean to pry too much, but I mean, are you, yeah.
Not so, I mean, it's a little awkward because parts of my immediate family are still part of that church and others aren't, including myself, you know, and it's not like there's a bunch of clashing or anything like that by any means. Thank goodness. You know, we all kind of understand, okay, this is your personal choice. This is my personal choice. So as long as you don't affect my personal choice, then, you know, you do you and I do me. So it's not too bad within the family, thank goodness. But yeah, I mean, it as early on as a kid, it definitely helped me wake up to a lot of it made a lot of connections start to click.
And so you weren't allowed to study Bigfoot and UFOs and all these things. So I can only imagine that piqued your interest, right?
It totally did. I had my first UFO sighting when I was about 8 years old.
Oh.
And I was not allowed to, my biological father would absolutely not even humor the idea. And I was not allowed to try to look into what it could be. It was like, no, the answer was Satan. The answer was just, it had to be Satan, the devil. You know?
Yeah.
Right. And,
wow. Okay. Wait, hang on. So tell us about this first UFO sighting.
Basically I was just in my bedroom as a kid, just, you know, wanting to go to bed. And I had a window right by my bed, you know, and I've always just been a stargazer. And so I'm just looking out, watching the stars, you know, and nowadays you can hardly see any stars in Sacramento, but back then it wasn't so bad.
Okay.
You know?
My sister lives in Sacramento now. Yeah. But
oh gosh,
go on.
Yeah. Then I'm sure she knows. Yeah. It progressively got worse. All the pollution, everything, like you can't see anything anymore. I mean, there are some pockets, but not so much in the city. And, I saw a light, and at first it just looked like a kind of a large star. and it started kind of dancing around in the sky. And I knew it couldn't have been a plane. I'm like, planes can't move that fast. They can't maneuver that fast. I most of my life, I've grown up by an Air Force base of some kind, so I knew this could not have just been a regular plane or something. And it stopped, and then it turned into two lights, like literally just split into two lights, and they were both dancing around. And then they kind of melded back together and split into three. And this kept happening for a couple of minutes until they just stopped and shot straight in the air.
Whoa.
And the thing is, I saw this a second night. So it wasn't even just a one-time weird thing. I've seen it more than once. But my parents would absolutely not humor the idea. Wasn't allowed to look into it. Wasn't allowed to do anything. So that just, of course, piqued my interest. I had a lot of other just sort of little seeds getting planted, making me like question authority in general. When I was actually just telling a friend of mine last night, for instance, we had to be on food stamps, and all that kind of stuff as kids. And I remember going to a food line, like a food donation area, and they had all this food for us, and we had to put over half of it back because it wasn't kosher.
Oh, wow. But you're not Jewish, like a weird...
Kind of. Like,
okay.
I mean, we actually did days like Passover and everything. Like we did do those, but we also still taught about Jesus and believed in Jesus and everything and called ourselves Christians. Like it was,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not a very well-known church. And two things came to my head at that point. One, I really doubt God would condemn a child for eating something that may or may not have traces of pork gelatin, because I remember like, big bags of cereal, like of off-brand Lucky Charms type stuff, and I'm like, I could just pick those out. Like, who cares, The other thing was, how do you not, knowing there's plenty of people that can't, Muslim communities and Jewish communities, etc., knowing there are plenty of people who have to eat kosher in need of assistance, how do you not focus on getting things marked as kosher or without gelatin ingredients? So it was both kind of like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense on the church side, but this also doesn't make any sense on the government side. Both are not looking after me. Both are more focused on either ease or rules or whatever. When this could have easily been remedied on both sides, and the adults aren't doing it. So why is the 6-year-old sitting here going, this could have been fixed? Right.
So, well, this is something I think about a lot. This idea that we had pumped into our brains in the 80s and the 90s that, teenagers are getting so of course, teenagers, it's an invention, Madison Avenue invented it as a category, right? But like teenagers, they're so surly and they act out and everything. And then you look at, the people who are raging and angry in the 80s and the 90s. Were you wrong? I mean, now look at the system. It's a funny thing. It's like you look around and you go, this is a total mess. But of course, the adults are so, broken and homed in on whatever it is they have to focus on, that children do see the world in a really fresh way. So I'm sympathetic to that. Yeah.
Children pick up on a lot more than people realize. And that was my case. I was picking up on all these little things. I mean, I still believe in God for sure. I call myself non-denominational, but I don't associate with that church. And there are just so many things as a kid that are like, wait a minute. I just started questioning. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. This could have been fixed. Who are they to say I should do that? It was just all these questions. And the more I was confused about it, the more I wanted to hear other people's side of the story. And because I had my own early on paranormal experience that I wasn't allowed to look into, I wanted to hear other people's, because I was silenced, and I wanted to be that ear for others who might have been silenced, so to speak, or at least figure out some answers. I knew things were being hidden from me, and I didn't want them to be hidden from me. I wanted to know what was going on. So all that, and it was all based in distrust.
Yeah.
It was all based in people are lying to me. People are hiding things from me. People are manipulating me. People are stopping me from knowing things I have a right to know. And so I fell down the rabbit hole really early on. And even though I didn't believe in most of it, I still had to hear it all, because it was like, what if there's a shred of truth? And what if that shred of truth lines up with another shred of truth and another experience? And I just had to know it all. And the more I read about, about all these conspiracies and people being silenced and being shut down or even killed, I'm like, oh my God, how can I trust anybody? How can I trust anyone that calls themselves authority?
Right.
You know? So yeah, it all kind of just tied together.
How old were you at that point? I mean,
But at that point, 12.
12, and you're on the internet and doing this? Is that what's
library,
happening?
Internet.
Mm-hmm.
We got cable when I was 12 years old. So then I was shoved into late night History Channel, you know, recording everything on DVR. Like, it was my obsession. It really was. We had like, you know, sometimes we'd have like school reports and we would be told, pick a subject, have a full-on presentation, pick a subject. And I would have to go back and bullshit sources to cite because I had everything at the top of my head. Every single name, date, fact, all of it.
So I can imagine you were a fun person to follow into Barnes and Noble, right? You head right to the sort of mysterious, the occult section. You've got the
people would give me looks in the library. They see this like, you know, young girl and, you know, looking just total. I have like the worst like bitchy resting face when I'm focused too. So I get this really stern like focused look, and I'm looking through all this UFO crap, and people would look at me like, you know.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but it just never stopped. And I mean, I was saying I can't trust the government. I was saying I can't trust politicians and all kinds of stuff so early on.
Right.
And that's kind of part of what I'm hoping to plant in the minds of a lot of my followers through Cryptid Bartender, actually.
Okay.
Now, a great deal of my followers, they already are in some way libertarian because, you know, friends supporting friends. And,
sure.
You know, a lot of them are youth, little more, they're more on the left side, you know, because cryptids, etc., are really a fad right now, very heavily so with millennials and a bit younger.
Right.
So they're following my stuff because of that. And this is what I mean when I try to say I'm trying to balance who I am and what I want to, you know, how much of me I want to put out there in the bartender area.
I understand. So if I may, so where can people find the Cryptid Bartender stuff?
They can find it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, mostly Facebook. I know I'm getting people laughing at me, but I did start a TikTok for it because as far as I'm concerned, my phone was made in China.
Right.
Okay. If they want my information, they have it, you know, I don't care.
Well, you got to go to where the people are.
Right. Well, that's exactly it. What is
the handle? I'm trying to find it on
the
Twitter
Cryptid Bartender. Pretty much all of them are the Cryptid Bartender. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, but I'm hoping, here's the thing with the Cryptid Bartender stuff, I have not been quiet that I am in some way anarchist or anti-government.
Right.
I have made that clear a few times. And I've lost like maybe 2 followers from that big freaking whoop, you know?
Right.
So part of my thing, you know, I do the drinks based off of cryptids, aliens, etc. But I tie in.
I love that.
I tie in the conspiracy theories.
Okay, cool.
For instance, I recently just did one on MK Ultra. You know,
and my favorite.
Right, I've done MK Ultra. I've done Bohemian Grove. I've done the Skull and Bone Society, and there's more. There's so much more, and I'm kind of hoping to get that out there and encourage, like, guys, you need to look into this. You can't keep trusting your government. This is actual fact, and you need to see it. Here's just a small bit of what happened.
There are so many, right, and then let them kind of find it themselves. This is a very fun project. I enjoy it because, of course, you can only lead people there. You can't shove the pill down somebody's throat.
Exactly. I'm not trying to full on just, read it, and I will, I'm not trying to convert anybody straight up like that. I'm trying to just plant those little seeds of knowledge so they go, I need to look more into this. And then they initiate themselves to look more into it and go, oh my gosh, look at what they've done, this and this and this, look at this and look at that, look at all the lies, look at all the cover-ups.
Well, MK Ultra, of course, isn't a conspiracy theory. I mean, it's not. Bill Clinton apologized for it. Errol Morris did a documentary about it. It's mainstream. We accept it. What is a conspiracy theory is this idea that all of these programs were shut down,
right?
When instead they were brought to scale. And
right.
we're living
I actually had multiple people request I did MK Ultra.
Yeah.
Like quite a few people. So I went ahead and finally did it. And gosh, that one was like, I always like to do a little bio piece with every cocktail I do, like little history. Here's why I made the drink the way I did, etc. that one was hard to do because there was just so much. I'm like,
right.
how can I even sum this up? Like, so literally I copied and pasted some stuff and like quoted the source. I'm like, read into it. I beg you, just read into it.
Fantastic.
I'm not going to give you the whole lesson. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I love it. This is great. I'm looking at it right now. So so it says it's a Collins glass, half-ounce Irish cream, 1.5 ounces of loopy vodka.
Yes, it's a vodka that straight up tastes like Fruit Loops or Fruity Pebbles.
Oh,
or something. Yeah.
And club soda. All right.
It's a take on a Mind Eraser, which is, it's Kahlua regular vodka and club soda. So it's like that, except with loopy vodka and Irish cream and the club soda. It legitimately tastes like you're just drinking like a somewhat spiked bowl of cereal too.
I mean, and if you were to do it right, you would top it off with just a little tab of acid.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've actually my next one I have to photograph and do this week. Actually, speaking of acid, is the Machine Elf. That's my.
The DMT. The DMT.
Yes.
Drink. Right. I've met the Machine Elves. They're real. I had a UFO land on my head too.
That was another requested one.
That'll be interesting. What are you do you have any thoughts about what you're gonna do for that?
Yeah, I have it planned out. I just have to actually photograph and get it posted. But I figured, it's almost Christmas. Elves, it works. It counts, right?
Take a heroic dose and meet the Machine Elves.
While you're at it.
Right. That's so interesting. Tonight, it just so happens I'm going to be watching Eyes Wide Shut, and I'm going to do a tweet thread about it. That's my favorite Christmas movie. People forget that Eyes Wide Shut is a Christmas movie. I would love, and I don't know if you take requests, I'm just going to put it in. I would love for you to do something like the Kubrick moon landing, or like Kubrick murder, the idea that they killed him for making Eyes Wide Shut. Have you heard, of course you've heard that theory?
I believe so. I haven't really looked that much into it, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's Eyes Wide Shut is basically like a here's Epstein and company movie. I mean, it's straight up just pointing directly at it. It's not even subtle. There's the weird man who's pimping out his daughter right there in the movie. And of course it has all of these other little nods to MK Ultra, right? The place where he goes to get his costume is Rainbow Fashion. His wife's name is Alice. The two models at the beginning of the movie, he asks, where are we going? They say to where the rainbow ends. And of course you start picking into the MK Ultra stuff. It's all this like weird Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland.
I haven't seen that, but I'm going to have to.
Oh, wow.
I did watch the Epstein docuseries actually. And I mean, it was definitely, uncomfortable to watch, of course, but I was a little disappointed with how much detail they left out in some areas, because once this whole thing came out, I was just researching like crazy, who's involved and everything. And there was all these details that they just totally didn't touch on. I'm like, there's so much more we could have expanded on, but they didn't do it.
We were living in Manhattan when it happened. And that night that the power went out in Midtown, a few people were saying, "Oh, they're trying to kill Epstein. They're using that as cover." That was literally how much it was the talk of the town. And this fellow I know who is like a trader, and he actually worked as a special effects guy with Kubrick on 2001. So this guy goes way back, very interesting character. He kept bringing up Les Wexner, and I don't know what happened to Les Wexner, but Wexner is the fellow who basically gave Jeff the house. And so and of course he's the owner of Victoria's Secret. I mean, it just goes so far. And he had to retire, or he had to like step down, and all of this craziness. That would be a good drink, though. Would be the Epstein didn't kill himself.
I've been trying to. That's been in the works. I did one of my very first podcast spots was on Trent Must Talk, and we just kind of goofed off and came up with a bullshit recipe for one with like a little Twizzlers rope noose and all kinds of crap, but I've been trying to think of one. I've been a little stumped on it.
Oof, I mean, that could get really dark really fast. Well, this is a really fun project. So tell me a little more about the genesis of it. When did you begin bartending? What's the story there?
Funny enough, I only started bartending last year.
Oh.
We have a local bartending academy for it, and I wanted to get into bartending. I figured it'd just be a little easier if I got my foot in the door and, went to the school first to see if I liked it at the very least. And I took to it really quickly. I have years of experience with baking and food art and everything. So it's just kind of easy for me to remember recipes. I'm good with customers, and so I took to it really, really quickly. And I got a job not too long afterwards in bartending. And so with the Cryptid Bartender, I wanted something to stand out when I was on the job market. And I knew I could kind of create my own recipes, but I was kind of trying to figure something else out I could actually put on a resume, A friend of mine messaged me out of the blue and sent me a link to a shirt that just had cryptid print all over it. And she said, you need to make the Cryptid Bartender a thing. That was all she said. And I'm like, the hell does that mean? But I started thinking about it. I'm like, I guess I could kind of do something and create the recipes like I want to, but make them all based off of this and maybe expand on that, make that a social media thing. So I kind of toyed around with that. I came up with 2 different recipes. One was Spring Hill Jack, one was El Chupacabra, and I put them up and it actually took off pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised. I'm like, okay, I can keep doing this. And so I kind of kept expanding. And a couple of months after I started doing that, I was already at, I don't know. I think I was a little over 700 followers within a couple of months.
Yeah.
And I put that on my resume. And because some of our places here, they won't even hire you as a bartender unless you have social media following in regards to your bartending.
Wow.
Yeah. So I did that, and I had my job interview at the academy that I learned from, and that helped me get hired.
Cool.
Because I was so invested in the work. So within 4 months of learning bartending, I was also teaching bartending. I wasn't allowed to tell my students that, but yeah. So then we'd had a meet the employees kind of thing there, and she let me put my Cryptid Bartender stuff on the info piece and all, and so that got more followers. And it's been a little over a year, and I am just under 9,000 followers on the Facebook alone.
That's fantastic. Nice job.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. So, and then there was more, spread through the other social media.
Yeah.
So,
well, you're going to have to make a book at some point.
That's also in the works. I get a lot of people requesting that. I did a poll not too long ago on Instagram asking who would be interested in helping with a Kickstarter for one. And I had a pretty good amount of people saying that they were interested. So I'm thinking 2021, that's going to be one of my main focuses, is getting the physical recipe book out there, or at least part 1, because there's still so many I'm working on all the time. So this is literally going to be the first part of a series more than likely.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, and with the book, you could do little bits and bobs about the cryptid in question too, of course, right?
Exactly.
Or the myth or whatever, right? Or do you think you're going to write those yourselves, or do you think you're going to collaborate with someone? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I write them myself for when I put them on Facebook and Instagram and everything anyway, So yeah, I'll just write all that myself. Might even take the photos myself if I can figure it out. Well, I've got a little bit of history in photography too, actually, because again, too many hobbies. And so that's in the works, as well as YouTube channel. I'm trying to get that up and running. I have it started. I just only have one video on there, and it was a rush job interview video. So
I mean, this to me seems like such an obvious travelogue show, right? You could be, on the Food Network or whatnot. But it's cryptids and right. I always say, how great would it be if we had tag team Harley Sweat and Guy Fieri? How cool does that sound? And we can right? We can go everywhere together and be best friends. I mean, look at hey, Guy Fieri, if you're out there. But I seriously, I mean, look at what Bourdain made out of his show,
right?
And he would bring on someone every episode. So I mean, you could do. I don't want to turn this into a production meeting, but I mean, you could turn this into, you go do a pilot episode about the Chupacabra, right? You find a few people, you get a camera crew, you go down there, you make a pilot episode. Every episode ends with you making the drink, and there you go. I love that idea. I would watch that show.
It'd be a lot of fun. I want to get my foot in the door with doing, once I get more of a following, also doing Comic-Con type stuff.
Yeah.
Potentially. Here, the Tucson one, as long as you're somehow relevant to geekiness, whatever, in some way, you can pretty much get a panel,
Sure.
And so I figure after a bit, I can this year's was canceled,
Right,
but
right.
because of COVID, but
Mhm.
if it's running next year, hopefully by then I'll have books, I'll have more of a following, and I can maybe do something in that regard. And just, I mean, there is a lot of potential, and it is growing constantly. So there's no reason for me to stop right now.
Sure. No, it's a brilliant idea. I mean, build your audience, get that platform, and then go to a publisher and tell a publisher. Yeah. I mean, that's something that could sell. They could sell that for sure. This stuff is hot. People love this stuff. Sometimes it can be really dour and depressing, especially this year, because I think a lot of like our kind of people, let's just say liberty-minded people, are just pointing around at everything and going, "We told you so. We told you so. We told you so. We told you so." This has been coming, and I think normies are kind of shell-shocked. They just can't, right? Or they're bootlicking. They're just really excited for all the new rules. They love it. Yeah. These are the people who just want school to go on forever. We just never get out of school. You elect a principal as the governor is the principal, and you're just in one big. If you're poor, it's an open air prison. If you have a little money, it's more like a public school. If you have a lot of money, it's more like a posh private school. But it's still school. You have these rules. You have these parameters. Blah blah blah. I'm Bueller. I want the day off. Right. But people are into this stuff. Even normies, you just say chupacabra and people light up, right? Like I want to believe, and everybody knows the X-Files. I mean, that was a huge hit. Television wouldn't be the way it is, by the way, if it weren't for the X-Files. The X-Files was a really, really big breakout show.
That is my son's middle name is after Fox Mulder. Like I die hard fan. Yes. But, yeah, no, exactly. There's just no reason for me to stop right now. And I mean, I had to kind of take a hiatus a couple of times just because, it takes money to do this, to get the ingredients and try them out. And people ask me like, wait, you actually make them and try them? Well, I'm putting up photos. Of course I make them and try, so I don't know why they asked that, but I mean, yeah, I put effort into this. It's not something I'm just doing willy-nilly for the photos. It's something, I'm trying to create quality stuff that have people coming back for more and actually like, hey, wait a minute, she actually makes really good stuff. She gives a little history lesson here, science lesson, whatever. There's so much to work with.
And these cryptid stories are, of course, they're conspiracy adjacent. They are kind of conspiracy world. But there are modern campfire stories, and we're just sitting around the light of Zoom and Twitter and Facebook telling these stories. And there's some truth to these stories. Yeah. And not everything is wingnut. Some of it is fun and weird, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I like it. I think this is a very, very cool thing that you're building. I would like to make one more request. Yes. I would love for there to be a killdozer drink. If you could do the killdozer, it could be maybe
I could figure something out.
Like a variation on a Moscow Mule, something, I don't want to tell you how to do it, but I think that would be great. You could call it the Marv.
I do different mules. That's actually kind of one of my fallbacks. If I'm just feeling really lazy, I'll like just come up with some kind of on the fly mule. Like one of my favorites I discovered actually. What did I use? Obviously the ginger beer, but then I put in, it was strawberry something. It was like, what was it? It was strawberry rose gin, I think. And then I added like an extra like rose and chamomile like syrup or something like that. So it was like really floral within the ginger and balanced with that tartness and spicy and sweet. That was like one of my favorite things. And yeah, I'm always goofing around with mules. I love them.
Yeah. What do you think it is about all this stuff that appeals to people? You were sort of telling your own personal story. You got really deep into this stuff. I imagine. Did you go off to college, or what did you do after you left home?
No, I didn't go to college. I wanted to attend college actually for astrobiology. I wanted to major in that. Yeah, I wanted to major in that. But I knew realistically it was not going to make a whole lot of sense. It's not a very high demand job. It takes tons of money because there are so many core requisites and prerequisites to go with it. And I knew more than likely it would be government funded. So while I wanted to have a career in that, I didn't really feel comfortable likely setting myself up in debt and likely getting paid through taxpayer money. So I just decided to kind of say, screw college. I'm not going to go through the debt. And I took up, for a while I was, stay-at-home mom, and I was just making small cash from home. And then once my kids were old enough, I'm like, screw it. I'll just get back into work and I'll do bartending. And that worked out pretty good until, COVID.
Right. Well, it'll come back online. And it seems like you're not sitting on your hands as this happens. And I think this story of you building this brand that's turning into something quite big, in its own way, is a good example. I think people can probably learn from that. After we're done, I'm gonna sit and think about that and what that means. It's interesting because, of course, if you walk into a bar and maybe you have a little experience, but you don't have any social media following, the person who shows up with some experience and the social media following is going to stand out.
Oh, yeah, no, that's exactly it. And like I said, we do have some places around here that will not hire you unless you have social media following, because that's how you're going to get customers to come in.
Right.
So, there's a couple of places in particular. People are always telling me I need to go apply for there, but I don't really want to take the risk of trying for a new job when things are so uncertain right now. Lockdowns are back and forth and iffy, and the curfews and all. It's like, I have a job right now that, is helping. So I'll wait a little while, but yeah, that's very much a thing. They need people to be drawn and come in. So eventually I'm sure I'll find some kind of like dive bar or something where I can advertise myself and be like, hey, I'm here on this night, and have people come in.
Oh, that'll be amazing. It'll be like Wednesday will be cryptid night.
Exactly. Something like that.
Yeah. What is, and where again in Arizona are you? Do you mind my asking? Tucson. How far is that from Doug Stanhope and Company down in Bisbee? Is it close to Bisbee?
I haven't personally been to Bisbee. I think it's like an hour and a half-ish or so away.
Yeah. Stanhope and his people are down there. He's a great comedian. I don't know how much.
Yeah, I still haven't been there. Funny enough, I don't know how I haven't been there yet, but I have not been there yet.
How did you end up in Arizona? So you were in Sacramento, and then you find your way to Arizona. What's that story?
My step family actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I moved here, so then we moved there. We wanted to get out of California, period, and so people were they were all moving to Arizona. So we're like, okay, we'll move to Arizona.
Right. Yeah, we were just down in Austin, and I mean, it's it is the capital of Texas, but it is increasingly beginning to look like California.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, there's no way around it. It's just, and now Oracle is moving there. All these tech companies are moving there. So it's crazy, because when I moved there for grad school a number of years ago, everybody said, Austin's nothing like it used to be. And now 7 years later, it's doubly so. All these high rises and tech and everything. Yeah. So when you were bartending, where were you bartending? Was there a specific place that you were at? Do you still have that job, or is it?
It's the same job, so I don't really like to give out the exact location.
Okay, sure.
But it's the same place.
But eventually you're gonna, like you say, you're gonna find the dive bar and you're gonna turn this into a big thing. That's so nice, because then your job becomes this kind of meta thing where you're not just clocking in and it seems like you really probably enjoy it.
That's exactly it. Because I appreciate my job. I love my coworkers. I love my management. They're all wonderful. I've never had an issue with them. They've always got my back, and they're really flexible with my needs and everything. So I greatly appreciate that. And everybody there agrees with this. It's just too corporate. I don't have the freedom to be able to. I've had people come in, hey, what's a cocktail that you make that I can't get anywhere else? Well, I have tons, but unfortunately I can't serve them to you because corporate rules, Right, because you have
the point of sale machine, and the killdozer wouldn't fit into the point of sale machine. Exactly.
Yeah. So I just can't do it. So eventually, I would like some place where I can use my creative freedom better. But right now I'm just, staying low key, and I'm building this up instead. And then eventually I'll get known, and some employer is going to go, oh my God, I want you to work for me. And then there we go.
Yeah. Well, I think it's brilliant. I'm looking at your Facebook right now. Is there a mug that says, I don't believe in humans?
Yes, I made that actually.
I love it. This is great. This is good stuff. So it seems like Facebook is kind of the place to go, though you're on Twitter here, with this too.
Yeah, that is definitely the main place, because I can just post anything there, like Instagram, I can only do photos. Twitter, I can only do so many characters. And so usually I end up linking it to the Instagram instead, and so Facebook, I can put on whatever, link anything, say whatever I want on there. So that's kind of the main place.
I imagine you have some favorite conspiracy podcasts. Are there any that are top of mind?
I to be honest, I don't really listen to a whole lot of podcasts.
Oh, really?
I'm usually busy working, and I have two small children.
Right. So. What are their ages? How old are they?
They're 7 and 8. So,
for some reason I thought that they were older. You said, when they're, but I see what you mean. Yeah, we just had a baby, so it's just full blown baby mode.
Oh yes.
Right. So you have the one who's named after Fox Mulder. Yeah. Are there any more funny name stories?
I guess there's my daughter's middle name, which we kind of her dad and I chose to use Jade on that because it's a family middle name. or a tradition to use the middle name Jode, and we didn't, and so we had a backup boy and backup girl named, they thought I was going to be a boy. So just in case,
Sure.
And his parents were constantly like, you got to use Jode. You got to use Jode. And I'm like, okay, I'm not using Jode because it sounds like chode. And he didn't know what chode was. He didn't know what a chode was. Really? I had to explain to him what a chode was.
Jeez, all right.
So I told him and he goes, okay, yeah, we are never using Jode. So I'm like, if we use Jade, then we can say, yeah, it's a feminine version. And then we have an excuse to never use Jode.
And then everyone's satisfied in the family. Everybody gets what they need out of it. Yeah. Well, I think it's brilliant that you're able to do this and build this as you're raising children. That's an accomplishment. It's not easy.
You know what? My kids actually love watching it. My son actually gets involved. He actually has his own mocktail recipes on my page as well.
Oh, cool.
And so, so he brainstorms his own alcoholic-free ones and the flavors that he wants to do and everything, because he wants to be a chef when he grows up, and he has this big vision of like a mostly self-sustained, allergy-sensitive restaurant, because he can't have wheat. So that's a big deal to him. And he wants like a farm with it. He wants like a music venue. He wants a little shop where handmade sellers can sell their stuff in there. Like, he has these big goals. So he comes up with like his own little menus, and he tries to come up with his own recipes that he can have for this restaurant that he's had in his head since he was like 3. And so he comes up with the mocktail recipes, the alcoholic-free stuff. And then sometimes when he has one tried and true and tested, then I'll take photos and I'll put them up for him.
Awesome. Well, once you have a book, I'm definitely going to be interested in that. I like the logo and everything. The brand is really fun and kind of funky. What is, do you have a favorite cryptid? Is there one that you just love that maybe people don't know about?
Okay, so in regards to ones people don't usually know about, there is one that there's not a whole lot of reports about it. It's, I guess, kind of an obscure, I believe it's a Romani one, and it's vampire watermelons or gourds. And I guess like if you leave them outside during with the full moon and some other thing going on, they turn into these like vampire like fruits and vegetables. But the thing is, they can't actually do anything to you. They don't have mouths. They don't have anything. They literally just roll around and grunt and kind of bump into you. That's it. And it's so obscure and so pointless that just for that reason alone, it's one of my favorites, because it's like, why?
I love this. No, you're right. I just looked this up, and you can find on Wikipedia vampire pumpkins and watermelons.
Yep.
From the Balkans. Wow. Associated with the Romani. Wow. Okay, the belief in vampire fruit is similar to the belief that any inanimate object left outside during the night of the full moon will become a vampire. One of the main indications that a pumpkin or melon is about to undergo a vampiric transformation, or has just completed one, is said to be the appearance of a drop of blood on its skin. Weird.
Yeah, but they can't do anything to you. That's the best part.
Right.
They can't actually hurt you.
Vampire vegetables. Oh my goodness. This is so interesting. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Then the gathered pumpkins stir all by themselves and make a sound like burl, 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 and begin to shake themselves. These pumpkins and melons go round the houses, stables, and rooms at night all by themselves and do harm to people. But it is thought that they cannot do great damage to folks, so people are not very afraid of this kind of vampire.
Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna hurt your ankle if you stumble one on, rolls at you and you trip or something. But what else is it gonna do? It's a watermelon. It's a pumpkin.
Yeah, a watermelon that comes to life and kind of rolls around is so amusing. Exactly. It's just like weird little stories to scare kids, like to stay inside, right? Just stay inside. You don't want the pumpkin watermelon. I love how ethnographers and people, they take it so seriously, this stuff. Some old woman just basically wants to get a nap in and doesn't want the kids to run around outside, so she's made up some story, and then everybody figures it works because it scares the kids to death. That's what half of this is.
Right.
Who has an interesting book on UFOs that I peeked at one point was Jung. Jung had some theories about UFOs and sort of relating them to angels and where they live in terms of our psychic space. I think that kind of stuff is very interesting. There's a lot of
It is interesting.
Yeah, heavy scholarship on this. I think people hear the phrase UFO and they go, just nonsense. But it's well, hell, this year they announced that UFOs exist. The Pentagon released. I mean, am I wrong?
Really,
what was the story there?
To me,
yeah,
like we know that they acknowledge. I mean, that's what, like, Operation Paper or Project Blue Book, Operation Paperclip, all that kind of stuff. It's like, it's already been kind of out there. So I thought it was really odd when they were like, yeah, we believe they're out there. Like, yeah, I know that. Like, you kind of already acknowledge that. You just hit it so many times that it doesn't change that you've already openly said it over and over again in the past, So I don't know. I thought that was kind of weird when that happened.
Maybe that's why the reaction wasn't more intense. Like, I think a lot of people everybody was like, yeah, well, that doesn't surprise us at all.
Right. Yeah, it was a very underwhelming reaction and deservedly so.
One of the things that I like about this stuff is that you're sort of not supposed to talk about it in polite society. It's like sort of considered whatever. I don't know if it's déclassé or something like that, but I love it. I think it's wonderful. It's these are sort of like working class, middle class folk tales, and whether there's some truth to them or not, they're fun. This stuff is fascinating to think about.
Yes. People
are really into Bigfoot still. I've never understood the Bigfoot thing, but. Explain the Bigfoot thing to me. I mean, that's the obvious cryptid everybody knows about.
I guess just because it had that one video and it confused people for so long, Yeah. And so people started digging more and more into it. And then there was a lot of different Native American cultures have their own tales of a very similar creature, which is kind of like sparked the, wait, maybe it really is real. Because if they've been talking about it this long, then there had to be something. And so it just kind of kept fueling that fire. That possibility of maybe it's legit, kind of like the Yeti, actually. There's so much maybe evidence that comes out, on like hairs that don't match a creature that we know of, or footprints or weird sounds or oddly mauled animals like yak and such, so it's just enough to keep that wonder alive, and that's what keeps it so popular.
Right. The idea that maybe in the woods one day you take a hike and you just don't know.
Yeah.
And it fills your imagination. I'm on the list of cryptids right now, and I just saw the Kraken, which became a kind of a meme recently, didn't it? Release the Kraken.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, on Twitter, but that was sort of a political thing. I never got to the bottom of that. That was one of those things I spent like 48 hours off Twitter, and I came back and everybody was talking about releasing
right,
the
all
Kraken.
of a sudden everybody's using it, and I'm like, when did this start?
Right. Well, this is the thing with the carp recently. I don't even know. There was something with a carp that went around. We may be following different people.
Oh gosh, the Frogweiler thing. Have you seen the Frogweiler thing going on?
No, what is that?
I don't even freaking know. It's this Photoshop of a frog's head on a Rottweiler, and it was in my feed for like a week straight, and I'm like, what's going on?
Well, all it takes is one really autistic person to start retweeting, and then your whole reality changes. And that dumb bird website, and then you look up in the world outside, they don't know anything about Twitter. Your neighbors and your relatives, they don't care.
Nope.
But you're on it, 8 hours a day, and you have this certain idea that the world works.
I'm like one of the last people to learn what any of these trends mean too. So like, I'll just wake up, everybody's already all over it, and I'm like, what's going on? What are you talking about? And I just kind of like stay out of it because I'm like, I don't even know what's happening. Y'all just have your fun. Just bye.
I follow a number of people in the UK, and I do sort of enjoy if you're up late, it's like 1 a.m. and you're just sort of doom scrolling, and then suddenly you start seeing them wake up. and they start to tweet about whatever's going on over there. And so you have this weird window where it's like a 4 or 5 hours of Brit Twitter, Britter. And then the Americans come online and it becomes, that's right. Yeah. They're having problems right now. Did you see all the footage of people trying to flee London? Because of the lockdown?
I honestly have not really been watching as much lately because I've been so busy catching up with like custom orders and stuff, holiday rush. So a lot of stuff that's been happening, I don't even know what's been going on.
Custom orders for what?
Mostly my punch government in the dick shirts and some wood chipper ones. Okay,
right. So I should have wore my wood chipper shirt. I didn't. Instead, I opted for the classic join or die, don't tread on me.
I make rolling trays with that image, but they say toke or die instead.
Nice. Nice. Right. So you made a wood chipper shirt to order for me. And where can people find these shirts and things?
Honestly, just go to me directly through my Rebel Scum handle, because most of my shirts end up getting banned from Etsy. So I just have people go to me directly. I just kind of put them up on Twitter and go, hey, I'm making these. And then people go, hey, I want one. And then they message me.
So you're doing like screen printing? Is that what that is?
No, it's vinyl, actually, heat transfer vinyl.
Okay.
So I cut them all out individually and put them all on by hand and everything.
When did you start doing that?
Oh gosh, only like 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
Yeah, you got a lot of things going on. I like this because you're not one of these people who's sitting around moping about lockdown.
I don't have time to mope. I think I got time to mope. I don't
no
have time
mope.
to mope.
November. No mope November. So you're making these custom shirts. So you have one that says "Punch Government in the Dick." Yes. That's good.
Yeah. Well, what happened? I got a surge of sales for that one because AOC put up those shirts in her shop that said like "Tax the Rich" and "Green New Deal" for like $65 each. Yeah. So I made a post that said you can either fund AOC, fund a politician, and spend $65 on a freaking shirt, right, or you can support a hardworking mom and buy a Punch the Government in the Dick shirt for $25. And that blew up. I bet. Like wildfire. Yeah. So yeah, I got a lot of sales over that week. It lasted for like 3-4 days. People were coming in and asking for shirts. So nice. Yeah, I've had a very busy couple of weeks.
Is that your top seller?
You know what? That it wasn't until then. I'd say the top seller is actually the wood chipper one. Yeah, the wood chipper one's really fun. Wood chipper goes burr. Do you so you take custom requests? What does it cost to get like a custom? I charge them all $25 the rate. Even. Okay. Yeah. Unless sometimes they might fluctuate in price a little bit if I have to do like a plus size shirt that's just more expensive, or if they want a specific color that's harder to find, and so it's a little more expensive. But in general, they're just $25 shipped. Wow. Well, I like that. I may ask you to make me a custom Killdozer shirt for Killdozer Day next year. I'm trying to find a good image that I can use for it, actually, because I get Killdozer requests pretty often. I'm sure. Yeah, you might have to have somebody do a drawing for you or something. Exactly. Do you draw yourself? You don't draw yourself? I can't draw for crap. That's why I come up with so many phrases and all, because those I can whip up, but actual drawing myself, I can't draw. Well, we're winding down here. This was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it. What's next for Cryptid Bartender? What's coming? What are your plans? Next, I'm trying to focus more on the YouTube. Like I said, I have the YouTube channel started. I've only got one video on there because it was a whole rush job. I had representatives from the Lake Champlain Monster Festival reach out to me in August and asked me to do a custom drink for that and a video, so they could do like a custom like feature dealio for it. But I only had like 2 weeks to come up with the recipe, test it, film it, edit it, everything. So it was really baby's first video, but it's up there. So yeah, it is on YouTube, but I need to put more focus into doing that, and it's going to be tutorials for my own recipes along with more informational bio pieces and all on them. It's going to be like bartending tips and tricks, maybe some kind of like debunking myths, just more informational pieces, etc. It's going to be kind of a mix of cryptid and bartending related stuff. So that's in the works, and I'm actually going to be opening up a separate Etsy probably specifically for cryptid related stuff, because like I said, I don't really want to mix my personal stuff with Cryptid Bartender. Sure. So I can make more strictly UFO, etc. type stuff and offer it that way and advertise it through my bartender page and hopefully help fund that a little better. And yeah, I'm going to be looking into an actual physical recipe book pretty soon. Probably going to do Amazon self-publishing because that's what everybody keeps telling me is best. So yeah, that's kind of all in the brainstorm works right now. Well, don't forget your friends when the Food Network, the Travel Network, when the History Channel, when they start calling and you get your show, Right. It's a great idea. That is a show that I would watch if every episode you went and. It's a lot of fun. Oh my God. That's what keeps me going with it, is that there's just so much to learn from it. And even as much as I've been studying all this, I'm still learning something new, because there's always new debunks, new evidence, etc. There's always more coming out. Yeah. So you just can't know it all, because there's always something more.
There's no bottom to this this
really
bottle,
isn't.
right? You know, I mean, you could go and you go do the classics, right? You go do Loch Ness, right? And then you go do something really obscure and weird.
Exactly. I try to balance that pretty well. Yeah.
Well, Harley, this is a lot of fun. And again, people can find you. I was poking around. If you just search for the Cryptid Bartender Facebook, that has a lot of content, and then you can kind of find everything else. So anything else you want to tell people? Anything else you want to plug?
Not so much. I mean, if you are more freedom-minded and you're looking for merch and again supporting a mother of two, then by all means check out my Etsy as well as Rebel Scum Handmade, because that's also a pun on my handmade. Yay, puns! I'm good at puns. But yeah, otherwise I've already pretty much plugged everything.
Awesome. All right, Harley. Well, happy holidays. Happy New Year. Thank you for coming on. I'm Kevin Kautzman. This is the Get This Podcast. You can find us at getthispodcast.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. All right, Harley, peace. I'll see you on the Dumb Bird website.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Take care.